Okay, great. And I've been asked to talk about work-life balance. My name is Sue Raimondo. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the director of the Counseling Center. And I'm really happy to follow David Slinker because workplace expectations, I think, is key to a work-life balance. Students need to know what's expected of them, and they need to know clearly and in writing. And, okay, we're dealing with mostly 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and when I say expectations, we might think that some things are self-evident, like being on time. This is not optional. When you're an FA, a clean bathroom is a clean bathroom, right? But how many of you are married and like what you think is clean and what your spouse thinks is clean might be different? Okay, well think about students. So you might literally have to teach them how to scrub a toilet. Okay, so I really think, being very specific and start off with really clear, even strict expectations. You can always lighten up, but you can never tighten up. Okay, then you're going to hit a lot of resistance. So it's very important to have very clear expectations with students when we're talking about work-life balance. Because then, then we can start talking about open communication. One of the things I want to talk about is it's important for students to know the resources on campus. So I'm going to briefly talk about counseling services so you know who we are. Because students, we're a good place to start because we're confidential. So many students find that helpful. We have no session limits, we have no waiting list, and it's free. Okay, when we say confidential, we mean it's the only place on campus other than the Campus Christian Center where we can't share information other than if the student unless the student is going to hurt themselves or somebody else, and then we have a duty to protect. This is who my staff is, myself, we have two other therapists, Rachel Overmail, she comes once a month, we even have a psychiatric practitioner, because as some of you know, we have students who come in with some serious mental health issues, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, even schizophrenia. And those students do fine if they are on the proper medication and have some behavioral skills to manage that. Okay, we're trying to transition these students into adulthood. And I think that's where it gets a little bit tough, when understanding the work-life balance. Okay, again, we want students to are responsible for making and keeping their appointments. We make our expectations clear as well. And if students start making appointments and canceling all the time, then we're going to have a conversation with them, or not showing. We're okay with cancellation, but again, it's their responsibility. And then these are the most common complaints we see. 25% of the student population see us in any given year. That's 1 in 4. So we want to reduce the stigma that you have to be crazy to come and see us. Because really, do you want to be in a room where 1 in 4 of you are crazy? No. So that's what we tell students. So again, 364 students came to see us. And that's really important. And I'm advocating to change our name to Counseling and Coaching Services because the majority of students attend 5 sessions or less. That's really coaching. They come in for a very specific issue, and we just provide them the skills. It's really focused coaching, therapy, counseling. So, and then of course we have students who we see pretty much once a week. Their whole 4 or 5 years are here. Okay, that's therapy. But many, again, benefit from coaching. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. So, okay. And I want this to be interactive, so if you have some questions for me, please don't hesitate to ask those questions. Let's talk about work-life balance, though. We know, I think most of us can agree that our students really have a full plate. Berea College is not an easy, school to breeze through. Okay, we have rigorous academics, we have the labor program, and we have convocations, and this emphasis on service. So being mindful of that, though, the student has to let us know how they're doing, and that's why I want them to know what the resources are. But here's some helpful web links that I really like for all of you. Open, okay, wow. I'm so happy when this works. Okay, web links in terms of helping students understand, and helping you as supervisors. If you see a student who's struggling, let's see, this first one, web link it's from New York University, but I really, really like it. It's Live Well, New York University. And what they've done is they've taken the top 10 issues that students bring with them to campus and have lots of helpful tips. Health literacy, knowing what it is to be healthy. They have interpersonal relationships, recommendations, nutrition, sleep. Okay, because how many of our students do you think get enough sleep? No, zero. That is one of the worst practices that we have to help our students address. What's sleep hygiene? It doesn't mean you exist on 4 or 5 hours of sleep during the week and then you sleep for 14 on Saturday and Sunday. That's the worst thing you can do. So helping students understand how you carve out time for restful sleep. That's a real problem. Nutrition. I always talk to students about you have to bring packable food in your backpack. A thing of yogurt will not spoil in a day, or pretzels or apples. So helping students carve out time for lunch and dinner. They can take lunches out from food services. They've done a great job of trying to make it easier for students to eat. Okay, so we're getting back to the basics now. Sleep, nutrition, managing stress, exercise. And here's another thing. When I work with students, okay, some of you who are professors might not want to hear this, but I say, okay, look at your schedule, look at your classes. You have to figure out which one of your classes you're good enough in, and which ones you really need to work hard in. I mean, that's just reality. If you think you're going to do, your absolute best in every class, if you're good enough gets you a B or an A, do your good enough. If you need to do your best in this class to get a B or an A, then, you have to shift a little. That's just having a student just be mindful of what they do. We do it all the time. We prioritize, basically prioritizing. So helping students understand, really where they need to put their energy, I think is really important, work-life balance. I think it was really important what David was saying about celebrating work well done. Even at labor meetings, if you can have, hey, let's have a shout out for what went well this week. Hey, Stacy really did a great job with that parent who called and was upset. That is the case. Or with, got lots of compliments on how clean Draper was this week. A shout out. And also, what can we do better? And if we use the we instead of signaling out somebody, that can be really helpful. If you do that on a weekly basis, because you're teaching those skills. And then, of course, there might be times when you need a one-on-one with a student about their performance. Again, being very specific and going back to expectations and talking about behaviors, not the person. Of course, I hope we wouldn't tell a student that they were lazy or sloppy, but that, their work was, I think your work wasn't quite up to snuff or as good as it could be. And let's talk about that. Do you need more resources? What's going on? And if they're saying they're just stressed in life, that's where you point them to the right resources. Okay? I think really focusing on behaviors, because students take it really personally. As most, they have to learn not to do that. Right? Man, I've gotten into that where it's, so can you mediate a conversation between me and my labor supervisor? And that's not really what is helpful to the student, but giving them the tools to speak clearly and ask for what they need. And I think that's a really important work-life balance. Really helping the student communicate. And we do that. We've helped, it's called the Dear Man, we've helped students phrase a request appropriately to a labor supervisor about what the problem is, what they're asking for, and how that's going to help the whole department. Okay? So again, I think the open communication, but students have to step up. Because what happens if they start getting in trouble in labor? What are some of the typical ways students react?
Start skipping.
Start skipping. Okay, avoidance. How much does that help? Now you have a bigger problem. You're looking at labor probation if we don't get you to address this issue, but you're right, avoidance is a big deal. And sometimes it's because, they don't want to deal with the hassle, and sometimes they're embarrassed. They're like, this person really thought I was doing a good job. They've been really good to me, and I don't want to, I'm too embarrassed to let them know I'm struggling. Okay, so it can be that too. So really trying to cultivate that communication and putting the responsibility on them to learn how to ask for what they need, and for telling you when things are rough. And then all the resources that we have available, including counseling services. Again, these helpful websites. This one is just a publication of depression in college students. It has publications on everything. It explains what depression is, symptoms of depression, and it also has links to other issues. Okay? This is the same thing, this one's on anxiety, because the top two issues students come to counseling for are anxiety and depression. And anxiety has overcome depression as the number one issue. Again, another one, good ones, you can see that these are really good researched links for information on what this is. And you can point this out to students. Here's another one, Lifeline, View Lifeline explains self-harm among college students. I don't know how many of you have dealt with that, where students suppose they self-harm. But helpful. Okay, because that can be a really scary thing. If a student self-harms, for those of you who aren't that familiar with that behavior, it doesn't mean that the student is suicidal. We think that the student might be trying to kill himself. It's different than that. It's a way that they feel that they've released the pain that's inside so that it's visible on the outside. But it's still not a constructive way of dealing with distress, right? So yes, we want those who self-harm to be referred to us. Okay, that's a good one. So this one, again, is just a bunch. It's an unabridged student counseling virtual pamphlet collection on anything. And it is geared towards the college student. And you can find a pamphlet on anything. Eating disorders, anxiety, depression, relationship issues, substance abuse. Okay. This one is another, I just came across this one, the same thing, specifically for college students. This is really a good one. It's very current and up to date. So again, if you a handy resource if you want to just direct a student or have a quick link to give them to say, you know what, you might want to do some research on this. We do that a lot. For example, if a student comes in and I think, dialectical behavioral therapy might be good for them, I'll give them a website. Look this up and tell me what you think, so that they can buy in and have some ownership of the process that we'll be using to help them address their issue. Our students are tech savvy, unlike me, okay? They really are, so that's how they get information. So it's okay to put some responsibility on them to get that information. Okay, this one is excellent. Okay, speaking of work-life balance, you can cultivate happiness. I've done a lot of research. I'm really excited about this topic because, when you deal with neuroses and psychoses all the time, it's kind of, interesting and fun to start looking at positive psychology. This is a really, really good website. And, okay, I have to admit, if you go to this website, it was 46 proven techniques to increase your happiness. But the 46 I took out was have a lot of sex. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe not for our audience. But research indicates a lot of sex, really does. A lot of satisfying sex equates to like a $50,000 raise. I don't know the research behind it. Okay, that's why I thought I'd share that with you, but I did take that out and made it 45, okay? And David Slinker had something with Sandra Luber-Mirsky and his about the benefits of serving others. She has done a ton of research on the how of happiness. She's written a book called The How of Happiness. And so I'm putting together a lot of workshop information for students about cultivating happiness. I like this, let yourself be a novice. Our students, especially our type A, they think that they, you should be really good at everything. I'm like, then why would you be in college, if you know all this and if you can, build a goal. I mean, I guess you don't build a goal, whatever, and seriously, some of our students, it's basic. They don't know how to dress for work. They don't know how to answer a telephone. And it seems self-evident to us, but if we can patiently, clarify those expectations and model them for us, I think that goes a long way. But I'm always surprised what students don't know. Okay. And then, live your values. That's a big one. A lot of our students are, confronted with a lot of freedom and lifestyle choices, so helping them stay true to their values and themselves. Baby steps toward life goals. It's never the right time to take a risk. Find meaningful work and find meaning in any work. That's what we're trying to cultivate in our students. Whether you're an FA or you work in guidance services or you answer telephones in an administrative office, all of that work has value. And and finding a way to do your best at that. You know, I'm not me, because I'm a clean freak, so, you know, when our offices get gross, you know, I will step in and help with the cleaning. You know, building relationships. Because, okay, let's think about that. Because I titled this, you know, how to keep all the balls in the air or which ones to let fall. That's important. That is important in terms of setting priorities and work-life balance. I will ask them, are you making time for friends? And if they say no, I said, well, we need to look at that. You know, not every hour can be billable. You know, not every hour of your life can be productive. You know, we're just not wired like that. So helping students understand the importance of maintaining friendships, expanding their friendship network, very important, very important. So I really want to emphasize that because many students, I don't know if any of you had overachieving students who work way too many hours. You know, that's not always good either. What's going on? Are you attending to these other things? You know, exercise is a big one. You know, what are you doing to make sure you're moving? Because movement is key to battling or to managing depression. It just is. It's one of the key. I mean, depression and anxiety are so treatable, but you have to have these behavioral interventions. And that's where students come in and they're like, yeah, but. So sometimes in my office I have a rule where you cannot use the word but in here, okay? Because they will just say, yeah, but, I know that, yeah, but. But it's like, okay, you know this, what's going to make you take one step towards incorporating exercise? You know, and if they tell me I'll put my sneakers on and walk to the door, I'm like, okay, we'll go with that for this week, right? Start where they are. Okay. Not talking bad about people, that's a big deal on our campus. Everybody's in everybody's business, and that gets a lot of drama going. So helping students understand if you have a complaint about another student worker, let's bring it up in staff meeting in a way that is respectful. You know, I'm wondering about the way that the division of labor is, or I'm feeling like I'm taking on a little bit much in this area. Find a way to talk about that so that they're not backstabbing each other. And of course, volunteer, all of this, spend money on others. This is, I just think it's really, really a good handout to give to students. You know, taking joy in others' accomplishments and cheer them on. I think that's why having those celebrations, whether it's even just a little note, you remember, you know, if you have a large staff, you have a celebration for all the August birthdays, things like that. And I know many of you already do these things, and I think it's great. And many of you are the first person to notice that as students in distress. So that brings me to, okay, this is something that I'm piloting right now. I've put together this Helping Students in Distress. It's a guide, and basically I think it's close to 30 pages, 28. It's not meant to be read cover to cover. It's meant to be a resource. So if you look at table of contents, I mean, how many of you have ever felt you're in over your head with an issue that's being brought to you? You know, how many of you just didn't know, okay. How many of you attempted to help and then you made it that student dependent on you or it created problems for you in the long run? Yes. So this is trying to help you find that fine line between supporting a student but allowing them to make their choices and consequences for those choices. Right? I mean, you can say, I'm willing to help you, but you have to do your part, and if not, then there's consequences for that. So this just goes, this is an introduction, table of contents, responding to emergencies, referring students for help, eating disorders, substance abuse, victims of violence, okay? And what I'm asking is, this is going to be up for a while, and I'm going to have David take it down, because what I want is for you to give me feedback. If you think that anything needs to change, some people object to the clip art. Okay, that's fine with me. If you don't like the clip art, just let me know. Some people said, I already had a really good suggestion. You need to include self-harming behaviors. I don't have that in here, so I'll do that. But anything, and most of them say, you know, if you're working with a depressed student, you know, always stay calm in all these situations, but refer them to the resource. And we're the resource. You know, that's more than you are asked to do. I think as a labor supervisor, clear expectations and boundaries are really important. Okay, because I've heard, you know, faculty and staff tell me that The expectation is, I was basically told that I have to give up my personal cell phone number. Okay, that concerns me. I don't even do that. We're on call, there's a counselor on call 24/7. But what would happen if I'm the only person between that student and he or she hurting him or herself? You know, so we have them call public safety, who then calls us. Because what if I slept through my phone, God forbid, or for whatever reason I just didn't hear it ring or I missed the call. So even though I'm on call, you know, things happen, so there's somebody else alerted that that student's in trouble. Okay, so that's why we do that. So I think really strong boundaries. I know in some of your situations, my husband's a forester, his students would have his cell phone because, you know, they're running around out in the woods all day, I guess, you know. You know, I mean, he doesn't have easy access to email. It sounds really nice on a day like today, but I'm not so sure on those winter days. Okay, so please take a look at this and let me know, you know, if I can be more helpful with that. But the biggest thing I think is, again, the expectations and boundaries.